This podcast was produced by Shaun Weston Media.
This week, Lauren Parker and I talk about her career as a British film producer. We discuss the challenges of financing production, searching for talent, working with people you trust, and the influence of online video platform Vimeo. We recorded the show a few weeks ago, so the fast-moving COVID-19 landscape has changed since then. But Lauren's perspective of life as a film producer during lockdown remains pertinent, especially as many of the general challenges associated with being a film producer hold firm. I hope you enjoy the show. All right, Lauren, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
So you're a film producer. Is it a life of limousines and cocktails?
No, definitely not. Not when it's an independent producer.
Well, as someone who specialises in the industry of production, whether that's music videos, short films or commercials, 2020 must be a year you'll want to forget. How has work been for you and how have you adapted to things?
Yeah, I mean, work has dried up pretty much. It's kind of weird. I was on a job, did a big interactive project that finished the week before lockdown. So all the posts had to be done remotely for that, all the like colour grade and sound mix and stuff. It managed to get done and it's been released on time. But then everything else that I'd geared up after that is still on pause. We don't know when it's going to go ahead. So all I've really been doing during lockdown is, like most producers and people in production, is developing projects I already had. So I had quite a few short films I was going to shoot this year or early next year. So they're going into a lot more development. And I had a bit of money from the BFI to develop a feature film. So managed to get the treatment ready for that, and it's just kind of been meeting with filmmakers, like directors and writers, and just trying to get new projects together as well. I've got time to actually sit and read, so I've read a lot of scripts that I don't normally have time to get through.
Yeah, and the networking side of your industry is all important, isn't it? So I guess it's been a time to build on those relationships that you wouldn't normally have time for.
Yeah, like I've had a lot of filmmakers get in touch with me, and some of them it is just to have a chat, which is quite nice. Like, and then we can see if projects grow. So I've done a lot of Zoom calls, Skype meetings, and like a lot of the actual institutes as well, like BAFTA. I'm on a thing called BAFTA Crew, which is sort of like a mentorship program, like a teaching program for filmmakers. So we've done a lot of networking kind of chats over Zoom through that as well. So it's been quite good.
All right. So, and the TV and film industry produced guidelines to adhere to as well, didn't they, throughout this whole lockdown business? And I guess, is that unfolding a little bit now? Are things relaxing a little bit?
It's weird. I mean, as far as I know, things haven't really gone back. Like I know Jurassic World, the latest one, they went back, but in the first week they had quite a lot of COVID cases.
Right.
It's still going, and obviously they've got a lot of money to pay for all these extra things that you need. And then I think the soaps have gone back, but as far as I know, nothing really has at the moment. Like anything that maybe already had kind of stopped 4 lockdowns, was already in production, can get up and running, but we're still getting massive issues of no one will insure productions against anything to do with COVID. So
yeah, and cast and crew. I mean, I think there's a lack of appreciation sometimes for what happens during film and TV production and that sort of thing. There are so many people involved, aren't there?
so busy.
Yeah, and I think I did read a little bit that in preparation for our chat that cast and crew no longer have to self-isolate when they arrive in the UK if they're travelling from somewhere else. So that, I guess that's a good sign to maybe get the ball rolling again and get the work going again.
Yeah, I think as soon as they sort insurance out, it will be fine. People will start moving forward. The bigger stuff will start going, and then the smaller things can see how the bigger things are going.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, let's find out a little bit more about your professional background. It appears you've spent a great deal of time over the last decade or so honing many different skills. So along with being a producer and production manager, you've been a writer and a sound recordist.
Yeah.
What was your first job and where did it lead to?
I think my first ever proper job, I left uni and went and worked as a production assistant for Endemol. Like it was a reality show called Super Size versus Super Skinny at the time.
I remember Endemol. I don't remember that show.
Yeah, I did used to watch it as a teenager, so I was kind of happy to be on it in a weird way. But that was very much just working in a production office. You do like a lot of photocopying, arranging shoots, and it was. I think it was probably a lot more admin based. I only went to set a couple of times, so I kind of just lived in the office. But it was a kind of a good insight because I've always sort of gone the production route ever since. Like I was a sound recordist, but that was literally because I went on a set once. It was like a no budget project. Just a load of hobbyist filmmakers. They were like, we need a sound recordist. And I was like, well, I'll do it if someone teaches me how to do it. Like, there was someone that had the equipment. And I was like, I'll do it if someone shows me how to do it. But then I did actually manage to like get better and get paid work doing it.
Well, you did it for 2.5 years or thereabouts, didn't you? Yeah. So you must have been quite good.
I think so. I mean, I did a lot of horror, and I'm always happy that I didn't, like when people scream, it's really hard to get the levels, and I never messed it up.
That's a challenge, I guess. Well, you also wrote for Shock Horror magazine as well, didn't you? So is horror something that you really get into, or you just fell into that genre?
Horror's like my favourite since I was a teenager. I've been very obsessed with horror films, so naturally lent that way. Like my first short I produced was horror. The first feature film I worked on was a horror film. So it was just kind of that natural thing. Like I'd done a lot of writing for the local paper, and then I think I knew someone that worked for that magazine, so I got a job just interviewing like horror actors and directors. It's quite fun.
Well, you freelanced as well, didn't you, in terms of writing? You've written for a few things. I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, you freelanced at Future Publishing, where I worked for a couple of months. And I'd long left, I think, when you were there in 2010.
Yeah, I did.
What did you work on?
I just went mostly I did like a proper placement. I think while I was still at uni, I just left. I did like a couple of weeks placement at Total Film, kind of learning how it works and getting to write. And I can remember I got to go to the Social Network premiere. That was quite cool.
Oh, that is cool. Yeah. Leicester Square.
Literally my first night, they're like, do you want to go to this? I was like, yes. And then I did the odd article afterwards. Yeah, it was a bit weird when I came out of uni. I never knew what I wanted to do. I always thought I'd be a film director. But then I was like, I'm quite good at writing, because obviously at university you just spend loads of time writing.
But it does seem like, all the positions that you've held and these little pieces of experience you've had, they've all kind of related to one another. And then it's ended up where you are actually a film producer who can handle production management. So all of these little strands of things that you've learned along the way have all come together to form quite a substantial whole, haven't they, in terms of your skill set? I
think as well, I always think if you want to get into production, you should have an idea of what other crew do as well. So I'm very rare in that I'll always back up the sound guy, because like my friend, I've got a friend that I work with on 90% of my shoots, Fatch, he's amazing. But he'll always ask for things, and the producer might be like, no, it's too expensive. I'm like, no, he does need it. We're in this, for example, we're in a warehouse that had like corrugated metal roofing. So obviously any rain, really severe wind,
you could hear everything.
I was like, no, we need to pay to get this covered with whatever he wants to get it covered with.
Yeah. What do you cover that with?
It's some weird like horsehair blankets that are very expensive.
Really?
I'm sure there's other ways, but we did it.
Can you rent them at least?
Yeah, I think you can rent them.
It's a good point you make there about understanding what other people do, so that you have this broad view. And you could say that about any job, couldn't you?
Yeah.
If you're a CEO of a company, isn't it good to know what other people do and how they do it? It's really common sense, isn't it? You become better at your job. And you were a writer, a casting assistant, and an assistant director. It has created this bigger picture of you, I think. Now, in 2018, you were selected for the Talent Lab. What's the Talent Lab?
Oh, so that was really fun, actually. So there's various ones, and this one was for Edinburgh Film Festival. So you kind of pitched a feature film. It was all for people on their first or second, like early features. And I pitched a feature version of a short film I did called Wash Club, and that got selected for the Talent Lab. So the Talent Lab itself, I mean, it was great because at Edinburgh, basically, like, all you have to do is get yourself to Edinburgh, and then they put you up in a hotel, and you get all your meals paid for, which is brilliant, and free bars. And then you get loads of just sessions. So they take you to like writing sessions, producer sessions with filmmakers. You go to lots of talks, but they also did arrange loads of one-to-one meetings with people from the industry that normally might not answer my cold calls, like distributors, sales agents, and you get to pitch your project to them, which was great. And just the people I was on, there's probably like 20 of us maybe on the Talent Lab. And that's just been like a great network, because we still all have like a WhatsApp group. Like if we need help on shoots, we all get in touch with each other. Oh,
that's great. Yeah. So you've almost developed a community from that one visit to Edinburgh.
Yeah,
really.
Definitely. I mean, it was like maybe 4 or 5 days. We're all together, and I think we did build some good friendships out of it.
Is it good to form that group, by the way, in your line of work? I ask this because you notice it in large, big budget things as well. You know, Scorsese's worked with De Niro, he's worked with DiCaprio so many times, and Clint Eastwood works with his certain group of people. Is that how things tend to work? You develop a bond or a trust with certain members of crew?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, me in particular, because when I was doing my own projects, as a producer, small time, like doing music videos and shorts, I was working with crew that would be happy to work for like no money on favors on weekends or very little money. So I know I can trust them. They're working with me for the right reasons. So they were working with me because they like the projects and the art. So that now I've got bigger budgets, I still try to have those on board where I can, because I've got to trust. I can trust them. I think that's the thing, is like you just keep hiring people you've worked with because there's a level of trust. They're going to deliver, but also like longer form projects, you can be with people for the last shoot I did was 6 weeks long, and obviously I was with some people during the 2 months prep. So you just want to be around people you really like as well.
Yeah. You've worked with a guy called Simon, haven't you? Is it Simon Diamond?
Yeah, Simon Diamond's probably my main collaborator.
So you pick up on his style, because he'll obviously have a style, and then the more you work together, the more you start to understand one another's approach to making a film. Yeah. Did you meet Simon in Edinburgh?
No, I met Simon back at a networking night in a pub. There used to be in Nottingham, there used to be a thing called Shooters in the Pub, which was like there's a website called Shooting People, and it was part of their kind of networking nights.
So what's it like to be a British producer then? So tell us about some of the challenges you come across and perhaps the benefits.
Compared to, like, say, Hollywood, our budget's minuscule. We're always working with tiny budgets, but I think that sometimes makes you more resourceful anyway. You've just got to find ways to be creative with what you've got.
Do you get support from Nottingham, for instance? You're Nottingham based, aren't you?
I'm Nottingham based. I mean, apart from, the crew, the cast and crew here are amazing. And I work a lot for a company called Wellington Films, who produce like big films like Calibre and The Levelling. And they're sort of like my unofficial mentors, because I can always ask them for advice for anything based around features. But yeah, Nottingham itself, like, it used to be quite supportive, but they've kind of lost the filming link at the council. That person's gone and they never replaced them.
Oh, is it as simple as that? Just a simple thing like that can sort of put a spanner in the works?
Yeah, I mean, it was more to do with filming permissions and things like that, but we used to have someone called Faith, and she was amazing. She would literally, I can remember before I drove, she would literally come and pick me up and drive me around a load of potential filming locations to take me around, and they never replaced her. So it's really hard to get permissions in Nottingham sometimes, because you happen to go to the events team, and anyone that's dealt with the councils will know they like to bounce you around to every department without answering your questions. So that wasn't great. But I mean, in England in general, like the BFI have been great. I've had a lot of funding from the BFI for short films and early development of my feature. And now the BFI network's kind of split into regional hubs. So we've got the Midlands hub is actually based in Nottingham, in the same building that I spent a lot of my time working from. So they're very helpful.
That's a great coincidence, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of raising finances, is it often you're solely reliant on the BFI network or the short film funding program, or do you have independents that pique their interest?
For short films, BFI is always the first port of call, I think, for everyone, and the network. And I've been quite lucky the last few. I've got some in talks with them now that hopefully will get approved. But the last one I did was BFI backed. And BBC films are open to shorts as well. And there's also, I was in talks with, there's a production company called Gunpowder and Sky as well that have started doing more genre shorts. But it is very hard. I mean, there's private finance as well, like just finding people with money. Some people, I've never been that successful, but I know some people have raised lots of money just from very rich friends. But I've crowdfunded in the past.
Did that work out?
It did. The few I've done I did a horror short for $4,000, and we raised over $4,000. And then when we did the short called Wash Club a few years ago, we had $5,000 from Creative England and the BFI, and then we raised $5,000 through crowdfunding as well.
How about attracting talent then? Is that difficult?
It can be. I mean, I think it's a two-way street. Like, I get a lot of, the more I do, the more I just get people get in touch with me out of the blue, from writers and directors and crew members. But then I also, like now I'm starting to get a bit of traction with agents. Like you used to just send agents emails for cast and just be sending it out into the sea and never get a reply. So that's hard.
Are you actually allowed to sort of go to the university and say, can we borrow some of your students at the moment?
Yeah, you can. I've done various projects in Nottingham because there's University of Nottingham and there's Trent, and we've got a really good actual film school called Confetti.
Yeah.
So I've kind of got links with all of those, and more when I do the bigger projects because I can get them proper placements. Then I've had them on. We did a really big project at the beginning of the year, like a 6-week shoot for this interactive project, and we had students from all the local universities in various departments, kind of giving them their first role on set. Because I think that's the thing as well. It's like trying to get students their first role because it's really hard to break in.
Must be really exciting for them as well to have that experience.
Yeah, I was quite surprised at how the what we did. The we had one of the production runners. She was from university. She just was always happy, and I was like, "It's 6 a.m. How are you still so cheerful?" But for her, it was her first set, and I was probably like that on my first set.
So how do you market the films then with such a low budget?
I mean, it depends. Obviously, when I'm part of bigger projects, that's not my job. When I'm on feature films and TV, it's not. I just let whoever deals with that. But when it comes to shorts, it's very much sort of try and build a name for yourself online. The last proper major short I did, Wash Club, that we made, like, because we knew we were going to crowdfund it as well. We had to make sure it had an online presence before we launched the crowdfunder. So we shot a teaser and we kind of made Facebook groups and Twitter accounts and Instagram and kind of just tried to drum up as many followers as we could before it went online. And then for the online release, we want to go through Short of the Week because that's sort of the website for short films. And then that got us the Vimeo staff pick. And once you've got those two things, that's kind of as much as you need for an online film because they'll start promoting it and then other websites pick anything like that up.
Yeah. Now, having seen Wash Club, did you actually consider putting posters up in laundrettes?
No, we did go to a lot of laundrettes. I can remember scouting and I must have been to every laundrette that exists in Nottingham to try and find the perfect one.
So you mentioned Vimeo there. Vimeo's played such a huge part, hasn't it, in showcasing creative talent. I can't believe it's actually been around for 15 or 16 years.
Wow.
I know. Is it still the go-to destination for high-def video and creators like yourself and original content?
I think so. It's weird because I do feel like there's a bit of a snooty vibe against YouTube, and I'm probably part of that as well. Like, I think YouTube, there's just so much content that there's sort of this idea that Vimeo is a bit more creative and a bit more polished. Like, you don't get all those people, unboxing videos and makeup tutorials on Vimeo.
Yeah.
It's a bit more creative, especially Vimeo staff picks. They're always going to be of a certain quality.
And that's what you're aiming for, isn't it, to be on those lists?
Yeah. I mean, that was always our kind of, not necessarily for Wash Club, but we were always like, we want a Vimeo staff pick. Because now as well, that's as important as a festival selection. Like when you go for certain levels of funding, it will say, did you get into like an A-list festival or did you get a Vimeo staff pick? So
it really is such a big deal still. Yeah. I know the guys who started it have left a long, long time ago, I think.
And I think they really doubled down a few years ago on making it the home for people who produce short films and commercials and low budget projects.
Yeah, there's a lot of filmmakers I've kind of discovered through Vimeo that have then gone on to do features and things.
Is there also a place where you can actually find other people to work with? Have you experienced that?
Possibly. Like, I've never really done it. Like, normally by the time I've discovered someone, you like look and you're like, oh, they've already got their feature in development, or they're dealing with far much more money than I can bring them.
Yeah. It all comes down to money, doesn't it? Unfortunately. Yeah. So tell me about you've got a showreel as well. I've watched your showreel. And so tell me about the process of making that, because that's obviously a part of you promoting yourself and your work. Is it absolutely crucial that in your line of work you make a showreel?
I think it is and isn't. Like, not a lot of producers necessarily have them, but I just think it's an easy way to just show someone quickly that I can do high quality work. But it depends. For a DOP, like anything visual, like a director or a DOP, I would expect them to have a showreel. But a lot of crew wouldn't necessarily, say a costume designer or a production designer. Just a bit of a portfolio would be fine. And I mean, some people just send links to films, but a a showreel so normally quick and easy to digest that I think they're worth having if you can have them. I mean, I'm lucky because my partner's an editor, so he just made it for me.
That's handy.
Yeah. So I just say, use these films, and I'll trust his judgment for the most part. I think I made like one tweak to the first cut.
I think that's the key to self-promotion as well, as if you show the effort in promoting yourself. I think oftentimes people can take you more seriously, I think, as a creator.
Yeah, I think kind of a horrible thing to say, but like if people put effort into their website and I click on that, I'm more likely to look at the one that's nice and easy to read and looks nice, especially if you're going for a job that might be based more in the visuals.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're working on a short film, aren't you, called Lord of the Free Range?
Yeah.
Obviously put on hold for a little bit now, but is that going to be the next big thing you're working on?
Probably through my production company, that'll be the next big one. That, yeah, we're supposed to shoot this year, but obviously will probably be next kind of spring, summer now.
Raising finance, I suppose.
Yeah, we're literally just waiting for the final decision. I think I'm 90% sure it's funded. Hopefully it is.
So I'd like to ask at this point what advice or wisdom you'd give to those who want to work in film production in this case. What might you say to the young people listening who want to forge that path themselves?
I always just say to people, get in as many sets as you can. So, I mean, the reality is you do the first few for free. Like I worked as a runner, or my varied experience, like I can remember doing a lighting job on something just to get on different projects and see how they run, kind of learn everyone's roles. And if you can, like, just do it with friends. One thing that really worked for me is local film nights, and obviously not everyone's going to do them, but in Nottingham, we do a lot of kind of local film nights where it'll be all filmmakers from sort of varying levels getting together and showing their work.
Yeah.
Because then you can kind of see whose work you do like, who you might think you want to work with, and just also see like who might be the more experienced crews that you can kind of try and get an entry role in with. But that's it, really.
Have you managed to do those film nights through lockdown?
No, we haven't actually.
No, not an online version of it?
No, I'm sure there probably has been other things, but I've not seen anything.
Well, how do people get in touch with you, Lauren, to find out a little bit more?
Yeah, they can just go on my website, catopictures.com, and all my contact info is on there.
And obviously Cato Films, I haven't asked, but you have a certain friend you live with that you named your business after. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, so the Cato Pictures is named after Cato the cat.
And you named the cat Cato because
of Bruce Lee and the
Bruce Lee. Yeah. I wondered whether it would be Pink Panther or the Green Hornet. So it's Bruce Lee.
Yeah, it's very weird actually. Once I was on the train with someone that I'd only just met that day, and we discovered our cats were both named Cato, but hers was after Pink Panther. Mine was Cato.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
That was Lauren Parker, and you can find her online at catopictures.com. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on your favourite podcast platform or share it with a friend or colleague. You can take a look at my own website at shaunweston.co.uk for more information about me. In the meantime, thank you for tuning in to Season 2. Stay in touch, and I'll see you in Season 3.